Imagine a world where the regulatory landscape for medical, life sciences, and consumer products is in constant flux, with new policies and agency actions reshaping the industry almost daily. Welcome to the August 2025 edition of FDA in Flux, a Mint's newsletter designed to keep you informed about these rapid changes and their impact on investment decisions and development strategies. Let's dive into 4 significant developments that are currently shaping the regulatory landscape. FDA's PreCheck program, a new era for domestic drug manufacturing. On August 7th, the FDA announced a groundbreaking program called FDA PreCheck, aimed at enhancing domestic drug manufacturing. This initiative seeks to provide drug manufacturers with earlier and more frequent interactions with the FDA during the design and construction phases of manufacturing facilities. The goal? To accelerate the establishment and expansion of domestic manufacturing operations. But here's where it gets controversial. The program consists of 2 main phases. 1. The facility readiness phase. This phase offers manufacturers opportunities to receive FDA feedback during critical stages of facility development, including design, construction, and pre-production. While this might seem like a duplication of existing options for industry feedback, PreCheck introduces a new element, encouraging manufacturers to submit a drug master file. This file contains detailed information about the facility, which can then be referenced in product-specific marketing applications. This phase could potentially mitigate certain regulatory compliance issues, but it also raises questions about the FDA's human resources and expertise in engineering and construction. 2. The application submission phase. This phase aims to streamline the development and review of the chemistry, manufacturing, and controls (CMC) module of a product's marketing application through pre-application meetings and timely feedback. However, additional CMC meetings may have limited value, as drug sponsors already have multiple opportunities to request such meetings throughout the clinical development process. And this is the part most people miss. It's unclear how contract manufacturing organizations, CMOs, that do not plan to submit future marketing applications would benefit from this phase. The FDA has opened a docket to accept stakeholder comments on the program, with a deadline of October 30th, 2025, and scheduled a public meeting for September 30th, which can be attended either in person or virtually. The SDA's stated goal is to accelerate onshoring of drug manufacturing by providing facility design guidance and greater regulatory predictability. However, the program's impact on achieving this goal remains uncertain. Greater agency interaction during the facility design and construction phase could mitigate certain regulatory compliance issues, but the program may stretch the boundaries of FDA's human resources. As announced, the PreCheck program seems of limited value to manufacturers, as the agency does not employ engineering or construction experts, so any FDA investigator feedback on facility-based CGMP matters may not reflect other important considerations. For example, CGMP compliance is highly dependent on actual practices within an operational facility, as well as the relevant written policies and procedures, which would not be addressed in PreCheck-related feedback. Who may be affected? The FDA PreCheck program will most directly affect drug manufacturers looking to establish or expand operations in the United States, including CMOs that produce drugs and biologics for companies engaged in drug development, manufacturers designing facilities for specific drug or biological products, or supporting supplemental marketing applications to take over manufacturing for already approved products will likely benefit most from the program. It's also important to keep in mind that designing a manufacturing facility in accordance with FDA's feedback under the PreCheck program will not insulate the facility from future inspectional observations of non-compliance. Ultra-processed foods in the spotlight. Federal agencies seek to create a uniform definition. On the heels of the Make America Healthy Again (MAHA) Commission's first report, FDA, Its parent agency, the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, have jointly issued a request for data and information to help develop a uniform definition of ultra-processed foods, UPF or UPFs. The solicitation includes a specific list of questions. Responsive comments should be submitted by September 23, 2025. But here's where it gets controversial. Although the science is far from settled and research is still needed to tease out which food ingredients or processes may be underpinning observational study results that link UPFs to poor health outcomes, the May 2025 MAHA report called out the increasing prevalence of UPFs in American diets as a root cause of high rates of chronic health conditions in children. FDA, HHS, and USDA are building on the report's conclusions by seeking to more clearly and consistently define UPFs in future research and policy, with the eventual goal of addressing health concerns associated with the consumption of UPFs. The agencies do not mention specific plans for how they might use a consensus definition of UPFs in the future. However, various public policy decisions or future regulatory actions, such as mandatory labeling requirements, could stem from a universally recognized UPF definition. Who may be affected? For years, food manufacturers have defended product liability lawsuits, alleging that one or more UPFs caused a consumer's obesity or diabetes, with courts typically dismissing such claims due to the obvious health risks associated with eating high-fat, high-sodium, or high-sugar foods. In short, manufacturers do not have a duty to specifically warn consumers that junk food is not nutritious or could cause chronic health problems when consumed in excess. The lack of a universally accepted UPF definition has also helped defendants in such lawsuits by undercutting certain causation arguments put forward by consumer plaintiffs. A federally recognized definition for what constitutes a UPF, irrespective of how FDA and its sister agencies ultimately deploy that definition, may have an adverse impact on defense arguments in this flavor of product liability litigation. It may also strengthen more novel theories of liability for non-manufacturer entities, such as retailers or restaurants, that sell UPFs to consumers. Given the potential paradigm-shifting nature of federal action in this space, all stakeholders should consider responding to the agency's request for information and data. Medical Device User Fee Amendments, MDUFA, kickoff meeting suggests stability in the program's future. On August 4th, FDA held an initial public meeting to start the negotiation process for reauthorizing the next 5 years of MDUFA, FY 2027 to 2032. Despite the many changes at the agency since January, comments by representatives from the agency, industry, physician and hospital associations, and patient advocacy groups were generally positive about FDA's performance on device programs, and their comments hewed to familiar themes. Key messages coming out of the meeting included: Commissioner Makari's opening remarks praised Center for Devices and Radiological Health, CDRH Director Michelle Tarver, noted recent advances in FDA technology, i.e. ELSA, the recently deployed generative AI tool to assist agency staff, and highlighted areas ripe for further modernization. Director Tarver also spoke about opportunities to modernize agency resources, such as building out capabilities for considering real-world evidence in device submissions. She pointed out the center's need for additional personnel, particularly experts who can handle increasingly complex device reviews. Industry representatives from the Medical Device Manufacturers Association and AdvaMed acknowledged FDA's achievement of recent MDUFA performance goals, the current iteration negotiated to cover FY 2022 to 2027. But they also noted that continued major increases in user fee amounts are unsustainable for manufacturers, especially when there is little information on how FDA uses the collected funds. In general, industry is hoping fees will be used to support frontline reviewers and high quality rather than merely fast reviews. Representatives from physician, hospital, academic, and patient associations argued that FDA should use collected funds to expand other device programs and resources, such as developing policies on new clinical trial models, enhancing post-market surveillance of devices, and direct-to-consumer advertising, and providing more information on device safety and efficacy to patients and providers. These stakeholders urged such improvements be implemented, even if industry user fees need to be raised dramatically. Most of the meeting participants mentioned and spoke highly of FDA's Total Product Lifecycle Advisory Program, TAP, pilot. TAP was created by FDA and industry as part of the last reauthorization cycle to provide early, frequent, and strategic communications to developers of innovative devices to get them to market, and therefore patients, more quickly. Why it matters. The kickoff meeting provides an initial look at the interests of various stakeholders and what they hope the MDUFA negotiations achieve in terms of FDA commitments and performance goals. Commissioner McCarry's apparent support for Director Tarver and CDRH, as well as Dr. Tarver's comments spotlighting CDRH's focus on digitization and adding resources, indicate that FDA's aim is to keep device programs consistent with existing user fees by supporting incremental improvements. Similarly, industry group representatives generally appear to support the status quo, but will seek further transparency on the agency's allocation of user fees. Other participants from physician, hospital, academic, and patient associations put forward familiar arguments about the need to expand FDA oversight of device manufacturer compliance and provide more detailed information about device safety and efficacy, including in comparison to other legally marketed devices. But because these stakeholders do not directly participate in MDUFA negotiations, it is unlikely that such initiatives will be included in the final package that will be sent to Congress in early 2026 for reauthorization next year. Notably, the meeting indicated broad support for FDA's TAP pilot, which could foreshadow expansion of the pilot and its eventual transition to a formal CDRH program. Who may be affected? The MDUFA reauthorization process and eventual amendment package impact all medical device stakeholders. But this meeting is only the first step in a long process of negotiations between FDA and the device industry, as well as consultations with other stakeholders. Early indications are that the agency and industry are mostly aligned on holding the